The next section we're going to look at under the Civil Geometry horizontal tools is the Geometry Arc. And so I need you to go ahead and zoom in to the Geometry Arc section. And the first thing that we're going to look at is circles. Also, we have a little note down here that said during the operation of this command, the keyboard Alt key can be used to switch between alternate solutions, just kind of like it was done in the previous section. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my task. I'm going to go to my Civil Tools. I'm going to go down to Horizontal Geometry, and I'm going to go ahead and pin this so it stays out on the screen. Again, I'm going to kind of move my circle section over, and I'm going to go into the fourth row down, first icon. With this one, right now there's no feature definition set up, so I'm going to go up to my feature definition bar. Actually, I'm going to drag that on out so I can see it out here on the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and set my feature definition to Geometry Scratch. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to go down to Design, Design Standards, Geometry, and there's Geometry Scratch. Anytime you're laying out elements for an alignment, you typically want to lay it out in Geometry Scratch, and then when you're got all your elements out there and you want to complex it, that's when you might want to switch it to something else like MoDOT Baseline Proposed. But for now, we're just kind of playing out here. We're just going to leave it on Geometry Scratch. I'm also going to toggle this on to use the active feature. When I do that, you can see in the circle tool that it is set to use active feature, which that button does. Okay, so all we have to do out here is we can give it a radius value if we wanted to beforehand, but I'm just going to kind of do it on the fly. It says enter center point, so I'm just going to click there, and you can see I can define the radius on the fly. But whenever I'm happy with it, I'm just going to left click and place that circle. So that's all there is to placing a circle with your Geometry Arc tools. So I'm going to go ahead and slide on over a little bit to Arc Between Points. And I'm going to go into the next tool, which is this one here. Again, I'm using Geometry Scratch. I'm just going to leave that set to Geometry Scratch. And in here, again, we could just use the heads-up display and use our down arrows if we wanted to, but just to show you the placement methods that we have that many different options, but we're just going to leave it on center and radius. And so I'm going to accept that with a left click. It says enter the radius value. I'm just going to leave it at 0 for now, and it's going to ask for a start value or enter arc start point. So I'm going to enter a point there, and now it's going to ask for enter the arc length. And so I'm going to define that, and that's all there is to placing an arc out there. Again, click the start, the center point, then enter the beginning location, and then you define the arc length. Simple arc 2 element. We're going to go to the third icon on over. It says locate elements, so I'm going to locate the arc. And then it says enter a radius. I'm going to just go ahead and just click out here on the screen somewhere, and when I do that, you can see that I'm building a circle off there, and if you get too far outside, it turns like this and there's no solution. So you want to be within a certain distance or certain acceptable value to get this arc to draw. And so whenever I'm happy with it, I'm going to left click. I do have the option to trim back. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you can see how it trims it back. We're going to move into the arc from element. It'll be the next icon again. Again, just following the heads-up display, it says locate element, so I'm going to pick the arc. Now it's asking for a start point, so I'm going to start it somewhere maybe down here. And then once I define that start point, I can now see my arc being placed out there. And again, you're kind of defining the radius slash end point here, so I'm just going to left click, and then I'm going to define the arc length. Okay. And again, you have the option to trim back. The next tool is Simple Arc. Now, one thing you need to realize on these tools, and you can see some of them we already passed and we didn't really talk about it, but there's a little arrow in the lower right-hand corner of the icon, and what that means is that there's other options below. And so right now, Simple Arc is on top, but you also have Spiral Arc Spiral, Taper Arc Taper, and a couple other options. There are a few other options there. We're going to leave it on simple arc, but just remember that there are different options below if you see that little black triangle in the corner of the box there. So we're going to go with simple arc, and again just follow the heads up display. It says pick components, so we're going to pick that one, and we're going to pick this one as the second one. Now we can define the radius value. We're just going to left click, and we can trim both back if we like. Okay. Next one is arc between arcs. So we're going to go to this tool right here, arc between arcs. And again, we're going to look at the heads-up display. It says which type of curve do you want. We got compound, or I believe reverse, and that's what it is. We're going to go with the compound curve. So we're going to click on compound, accept it. It's going to ask us to locate the back element. That's going to ask us an option for offset. We're going to say 0 to that, and then we're going to accept it. And then it says locate the ahead element. So we're going to pick that. Again, there's an option for offset from that original element. We're going to say 0 to that, and we're going to left click. And now we're just going to slide our cursor around, and again you'll see a whole bunch of numbers up on the screen, and what that is those are solutions that we can kind of toggle through. Again, if you hit your Alt key, it should give you different options to choose from. Again, let's take a look at that note over here. Make sure I'm doing it right. It says, hint, during the operation of this command, the keyboard Alt key can be used to switch between alternate solutions. And so let's see if we can get that to work here. So I'm right there. I'm going to hit Alt key now. You can see how it's kind of cycling through the solutions. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. This one looks the best. If you don't want to use the Alt key, you can just move your cursor around, and eventually it will switch between the solutions. So again, if you don't want that solution, you can switch between by hitting the Alt key. So we're going to left click. We're going to say none to trimming, and there's your arc between arcs. With this one, complex transition between any element and an arc. Again, if we look at the note down below, arc is the ahead element, so just remember that when we're using the tool. Arc is the ahead element. It says locate the back element, so we're going to pick the line down here. Again, we've got an offset. I'm going to use 0 for this class. Once it's 0, I'm going to accept it. Now it says locate the ahead element. I'm going to pick the arc. Again, it gives us an option for offset. We're going to say 0 to that. I'm going to just left click. And now you can see that it's placing an arc between that line and the circle, or the arc. And so once I'm happy with it, I'm just going to left click and accept that, and then I'm going to trim none on this one. So that's all there is to the geometry arc tools. The next section is going to be dealing with spirals.